Hey, I'm Sophia Bennett, 35 years old, and I built a $30 million empire from absolutely nothing, just grit, hustle, and a dream. No college degree, no handouts, just me grinding day and night. I paid off my family's $200,000 mortgage, covered my mom's heart surgery bills, and even funded my brother's fancy Ivy League tuition. But guess what? My own dad looked me in the eye, called me a pathetic failure, and said my success was just dumb luck. My mom? She nodded along, while my sister, whose wedding I bankrolled, smirked and said I'd never be good enough. They took my millions, lived large off my hard work, then spit in my face when I needed their support. Can you believe that? The people I loved most, who I carried through their darkest days, turned on me like I was nothing. Now, I'm standing on my balcony in Malibu, California, watching the Pacific Ocean waves crash, finally free from their toxic grip. You ever been betrayed by the ones you'd do anything for? It's a gut punch, but it's also a wake-up call. Stick with me, because this story of how I went from their punching bag to cutting them off for good will blow your mind. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a second of this wild ride. Trust me, you'll want to hear how I turned their betrayal into my ultimate victory. Let's dive in. I grew up in Boise, Idaho, a small city where folks cling to tradition like it's the only path to a good life. My dad, James Bennett, was a banker for 35 years, flashing his MBA like a badge of honor at every family barbecue. My mom, Margaret, worked as a librarian, organizing books and preaching that a college degree was the golden ticket to success. Their mantra? Go to school, get straight A's, land a safe job, and don't rock the boat. But even as a kid, I was wired differently. At 10, I was baking cookies and selling them door to door, saving up $300 for my first bike. By 15, I ran an online thrift store from my bedroom, pulling in $2,000 a month. Mom would smile and call it cute, but Dad? He'd roll his eyes and say, "That's not a career, Sophia. You need a real plan." High school was more of the same. While my friends obsessed over SAT scores, I was designing custom sneakers and selling them to classmates, making enough to buy a used car at 16. My parents weren't impressed. They wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor, not some hobby hustler. Dad would lecture me over dinner. "Without a degree, you're setting yourself up to fail." I'd bite my tongue, but inside, I was screaming. I knew I could build something bigger than their narrow dreams for me. To keep the peace, I enrolled at the University of Idaho, majoring in finance. But my heart wasn't in those lecture halls. I was itching to create, to take risks, to prove I could make it my way. While working part-time at a local shoe store to cover tuition, I noticed something. Customers kept returning online purchases, frustrated that the shoes didn't fit or feel right. It hit me like a lightning bolt. What if there was an app that used AI to scan your feet and recommend the perfect shoe size? I couldn't stop thinking about it. Nights were spent sketching ideas, watching coding tutorials, and building a rough prototype. My grades started slipping, but I didn't care. This was my shot. Halfway through my junior year, I made the call that changed everything. I sat Mom and Dad down at our old oak dining table and told them I was dropping out to launch my business. The room went dead silent. Dad's face turned red. "You're throwing your life away," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "No daughter of mine is going to be a college dropout chasing some internet pipe dream." Mom burst into tears, begging me not to ruin my future. Their words stung, but I was done trying to fit their mold. The next day, I withdrew from school, took my $5,000 tuition refund, and moved into a cramped studio apartment in Boise. My office was a wobbly desk propped up on milk crates. I lived on peanut butter sandwiches and worked 18-hour days, teaching myself to code and pitching my idea to local stores. My parents barely spoke to me for months. When they did, it was to ask when I'd come to my senses and go back to school. 6 months later, my app, Fit Feet, went live. The first sale came in a pair of sneakers sold to a mom in Oregon. Then 10 more. By month 8, We were processing 100 orders a day. I hired a coder, then a designer, and Fit Feet started to take off. But when I invited Mom and Dad to see my tiny office, hoping they'd finally get it, Dad just nodded stiffly and said, "Nice hobby. Don't expect it to last." That night, I cried myself to sleep, not because I doubted myself, but because I realized their approval might never come. Still, I wiped my tears, got up, and kept building. Little did I know, their rejection was just the beginning of a much bigger betrayal. Those early days in my Boise studio apartment were brutal, but they lit a fire in me. I poured everything into Fit Feet, my AI shoe-sizing app, determined to prove my parents wrong. I'd work 18-hour shifts, fueled by cheap coffee and sheer stubbornness, coding until my eyes burned. I cold-called every shoe store in Idaho, begging them to let me scan their inventory for my app. Most hung up, but a few said yes. I'd drive 30 miles in my beat-up sedan to photograph sneakers on volunteers, offering them $10 gift cards. 6 months in, Fit Feet had 500 users. By year 1, we hit 10,000 downloads and processed 2,000 orders a month. I hired a small team, a coder, a marketer, and a photographer, cramming us into a tiny office with a leaky ceiling. We were barely breaking even, but every sale felt like a middle finger to my dad's failure label. I thought success might soften my parents' stance. So I invited them to see the office, hoping they'd see what I was building. Mom glanced at the peeling paint and said, "It's quaint." Dad crossed his arms, scanned the room, and muttered, "This won't last. You should have stayed in school." Their words hit like a punch, but I swallowed my hurt and kept going. By year 2, Fit Feet caught the eye of a venture capitalist from Seattle. After 50 rejections, she invested $500,000 for a 10% stake, valuing us at $5 million. I upgraded our servers, hired 20 more people, and moved to a sleek office downtown. We rolled out new features like virtual try-ons, and our user base exploded to 100,000. I sent my parents a check for $10,000 to fix their roof, thinking it might bridge the gap. They cashed it without a thank you. At a family barbecue, Dad introduced me as the one who dropped out, while praising my brother Ethan's engineering degree. Mom chimed in, "We're so proud of Ethan's real career." I stood there, forcing a smile, feeling like an outsider in my own family. But Fit Feet kept growing. Year 3 brought $10 million in revenue, and Forbes named me a rising star. I bought a modest condo, nothing flashy, just a place to call mine. I sent another check, $20,000 for Mom's car repairs. Again, silence. The harder I worked, the more my parents dismissed it. At a cousin's wedding, I overheard Dad telling relatives, "Sophia got lucky with some app. It's not a real business." Lucky? I'd clawed my way up, learning code from scratch, pitching investors who laughed me out of boardrooms, and building a company that changed how people shop. Yet, to them, I was still the screw-up who didn't finish college. I started seeing a therapist to cope with the constant rejection. She told me, "Their disapproval isn't about you. It's about their fear of change." It made sense, but it didn't stop the sting. By year 4, Fit Feet was a global player, with offices in London and Sydney. We hit $15 million in revenue, and I was invited to speak at tech conferences. I sent my parents links to articles about me in Fast Company and CNBC. Mom replied once, "That's nice." Dad? Nothing. I kept supporting them, $5,000 here, $10,000 there, because they were family, and I thought love meant sacrifice. But I was starting to see the truth. They weren't just dismissing my success. They were banking on it while tearing me down. What I didn't know then was how far they'd go, how their betrayal would push me to a breaking point I never saw coming. Fit Feet's success kept climbing, but the higher I soared, the deeper my parents' dismissal cut. By year 5, we were pulling in $20 million annually, with 150 employees and a shiny new headquarters in Boise. TechCrunch called us a game changer, and I landed on Forbes 30 under 30 list. I'd built something real, something that helped millions find shoes that fit perfectly, but to Mom and Dad, it was still just Sophia's little app. I kept hoping they'd come around, so I invited them to our office launch party, complete with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Mom clapped politely, but Dad sipped his coffee and said, "Hope you've got a backup plan when this fizzles out." I bit my lip, fighting back tears, and threw myself back into work. That night, I stuck a post-it on my mirror. "Your worth isn't their approval." Then, life threw a curveball. Dad got laid off at 60, a victim of bank mergers. Their savings dried up fast, and Mom's heart condition racked up medical bills their insurance barely touched. I didn't hesitate. I paid off their $200,000 mortgage, wiping out their biggest monthly expense. I covered $50,000 in hospital bills for Mom's surgery and sent a brand new SUV to replace their clunky 15-year-old minivan. When my brother Ethan got into Cornell, I footed his $80,000 tuition. My sister Lily's dream wedding? I wrote a check for $30,000 to make it happen. I wasn't just helping, I was their lifeline, pouring millions into their lives while running a global company. But gratitude? That was in short supply. Dad called my money family duty, like I owed them for raising me. Mom would say, "God blesses us," as if my 18-hour workdays had nothing to do with it. At a family dinner I paid for, I tried to share our latest milestone: Fitfeet hit 1 million users. Dad cut me off. "Let's talk about something real, like Ethan's internship." Lily rolled her eyes and said, "Not everyone cares about your app, Sophia." I felt like I was screaming into a void. My therapist warned me, "You're enabling their disrespect by funding their lives." I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was piling up. It got worse. At a cousin's baby shower, I overheard Dad telling relatives, "Sophia's just riding a lucky wave. No degree, no stability. She'll crash soon." Lucky? I'd bootstrapped a company from a $5,000 tuition refund, outsmarted competitors, and built a brand from scratch. Yet they acted like I'd won the lottery. Mom chimed in, "We're proud of Ethan and Lily. They've got real futures." I stood there, clutching my soda, invisible in my own family. I started pulling back, skipping some gatherings, but the guilt gnawed at me. They were my parents, my siblings, how could I say no? By year 6, Fitfeet's valuation soared to $25 million. We launched in Japan, and I was named a top innovator by Incorporated magazine. I sent Mom and Dad a link to the article, hoping for a crumb of recognition. Mom texted back, "Congrats." Dad didn't bother. I kept the checks flowing: $10,000 for their kitchen remodel, $5,000 for a family vacation I wasn't invited to. But every dollar I gave seemed to widen the gap between us. Their words grew sharper, their demands bolder. I was their bank, not their daughter. What I didn't see coming was how they'd turn my generosity against me, twisting my love into a weapon that would shatter everything I thought family meant. The more I propped up my family, the more they treated me like an ATM with no feelings. Fitfeet was now a $30 million empire, with 200 employees and partnerships with major brands like Nike. I was flying to New York for keynote speeches, rubbing shoulders with tech giants, but back in Boise, I was still the family disappointment. I'd funneled over $1 million into my parents' lives, $200,000 for their mortgage, $50,000 for Mom's medical bills, $80,000 for Ethan's tuition, and $30,000 for Lily's wedding. I even covered their $10,000 anniversary cruise, thinking it might earn me a shred of respect. Instead, Dad would say, "You're doing well, so it's only right you share." Mom nodded, calling my money blessings, as if I hadn't bled for every cent. Their demands grew shameless. Dad called one night, asking for $20,000 to buy a rental property for the family's future. When I hesitated, he snapped, "You owe us for all we sacrificed raising you." Lily texted, demanding $15,000 for a new car, saying, "You can afford it, so why not?" I sent the money, but each check felt like buying their silence, not their love. At a family picnic, I tried explaining how Fitfeet's AI was revolutionizing retail. Dad interrupted, "Enough about your app. Ethan's working on real engineering projects. Lily smirked. Yeah, nobody cares about your tech stuff. Mom just changed the subject to Lily's new job. I felt like a ghost in my own family, seen only when they needed cash. The breaking point was brewing, but I didn't see how ugly it would get. My therapist kept pushing. You're funding their lifestyle while they devalue you. That's not love, it's exploitation. I started to see it. Every time I paid their bills, they'd throw my no-degree status in my face. At a cousin's graduation, Dad bragged about Ethan's master's degree, then turned to me and said, "You could have had that, but you chose this app nonsense." Nonsense? I'd built a company employing hundreds, generating $20 million a year. I overheard Mom telling relatives, Sophia's money helps, but it's temporary. She's got no real skills. Temporary? I'd outlasted most startups, but to them, I was a fluke. I tried setting boundaries. I told Dad I couldn't keep covering every expense. He scoffed, "Don't get high and mighty just because you've got cash." Lily chimed in, "You're acting selfish, Sophia. Family helps family." Selfish? I'd given them everything, but it was never enough. The final straw came at a family dinner I hosted at a Boise steakhouse, dropping $5,000 on ribeye and wine. I shared that Fit Feet was up for a $30 million acquisition. Mom shrugged, "That's nice, but don't let it go to your head." Dad leaned back, smirking, "Anyone can get lucky once. What's your plan when it crashes?" Lily laughed, "Yeah, you'll be back to square one with no degree." I sat there, fork frozen, their words slicing deeper than ever. My success, my sacrifices, none of it mattered to them. I drove home that night, hands shaking, realizing I wasn't just unappreciated, I was being used. They'd taken my money, my heart, and given nothing but scorn in return. I couldn't keep pouring myself into people who saw me as a failure. What I didn't know was that their betrayal was about to hit a new low, one that would force me to make the hardest choice of my life and set the stage for a showdown nobody saw coming. The Boise Steakhouse dinner left me raw, my family's words echoing like a bad song. I'd poured over $1 million into their lives, $200,000 for their mortgage, $50,000 for Mom's heart surgery, $80,000 for Ethan's Cornell tuition, $30,000 for Lily's wedding, and countless smaller checks for their whims. Yet, they mocked my $30 million empire as luck and me as a failure. I was done begging for their respect, but I never expected the betrayal that came next. It hit at Dad's 65th birthday party, an event I planned and funded down to the last detail. $10,000 for a private room at Boise's fanciest restaurant, complete with lobster, live jazz, and a custom cake. I wanted to honor him, maybe even mend things. As guests mingled, I stood to share big news. Fit Feet had a $30 million acquisition offer on the table. Before I could finish, Dad cut me off, his voice dripping with disdain. "Don't bore us with your app nonsense, Sophia. Anyone can stumble into money." Mom nodded, adding, "We just want you to be stable, like Ethan with his engineering degree." Lily, sipping wine I paid for, sneered, "Yeah, you act like you're better than us, flashing your cash." The room went quiet, relatives shifting uncomfortably. My heart pounded, but I tried again. This deal could change everything. "I've built something real." Dad slammed his glass down. "Real? You're a dropout with a lucky break. You'll always be a failure in my book." I froze, his words carving into me. Then Lily piped up, "You owe us, Sophia. We put up with you all these years." Owe them? I'd carried their financial weight while they spit on my dreams. Something snapped. I stood, voice steady despite the earthquake inside. "A failure? This failure paid off your house, Mom's bills, Ethan's school, and this damn party. If I'm such a burden, you won't see another cent from me." Dad's face turned purple. "You ungrateful leech. Get out of my life." Leech? I'd given them everything. Mom gasped, "James, stop," but didn't defend me. Ethan and Lily just stared, silent. I walked out, past the $5,000 floral arrangements I'd ordered, into the cold Boise night. In my car, I gripped the wheel, tears streaming. 7 years of grinding, building a company that employed 200 people, revolutionized retail, and hit $20 million in revenue, all reduced to luck. 7 years of funding their lives, only to be called a leech. My therapist's words rang true. This wasn't love, it was exploitation. I spent that night in a hotel, replaying every sacrifice, every slight. By morning, a clarity settled in. I couldn't change them, but I could change me. I called my lawyer the next day. The acquisition was moving forward, and I decided to relocate FitFeet's headquarters to Malibu, California. I needed a fresh start, far from their poison. I bought a hillside house with Pacific Ocean views, not to flex, but to build a life that felt like mine. As I packed my Boise condo, I stopped the automatic transfers to my parents' account. No more $10,000 handouts, no more bailing out their demands. They'd called me a failure one too many times. What I didn't expect was their audacity to show up at my new home, thinking they could bully me back into their grip. Their next move would push me to a point of no return, setting up a confrontation that would redefine family forever. Walking out of Dad's 65th birthday party, with his leech insult burning in my ears, was the moment I knew I had to break free. I'd poured over $1 million into my family, $200,000 for their mortgage, $50,000 for Mom's heart surgery, $80,000 for Ethan's tuition, $30,000 for Lily's wedding, and still, they branded me a failure. The $30 million acquisition offer for FitFeet was my ticket out. I signed the deal, netting $15 million up front after taxes, with another $15 million tied to a 3-year earnout. I didn't just want distance from Boise, I needed a rebirth. So I moved FitFeet's headquarters to Malibu, California, and bought a 3-bedroom house perched on a hill, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Pacific Ocean. It wasn't a mansion, but its open spaces and sea breeze felt like a hug from the universe. Settling into Malibu was like breathing for the first time. I traded Boise's gray winters for endless sunshine, swapping my family's judgment for a life I could shape. I joined a surf club, wiping out more than I stood, but laughing with strangers who became friends. I started a foundation to fund women entrepreneurs without degrees, pouring $100,000 into scholarships. Helping others chase their dreams healed parts of me I didn't know were broken. FitFeet thrived under the acquisition, with 150 employees relocating to our new Tampa office. We launched a shoe recycling program, donating 10,000 pairs to low-income communities. Work felt purposeful, not a plea for approval. I stopped all payments to my family, no more $10,000 checks for Dad's investments or Lily's car upgrades. The silence from Boise was deafening. I'd expected anger, maybe a guilt trip, but not a word. My therapist said, "You've set a boundary. Now hold it." I tried, but the guilt of abandoning family gnawed at me. 6 months in, I was finding my rhythm, morning jogs on the beach, evenings with new friends like Sarah, a painter who taught me to sketch waves. I thought I was past the pain until Ethan called. "Dad's in trouble," he said. "Tax debts. They're facing foreclosure." My stomach sank. Despite everything, I wired $50,000 to save their house, hoping it might open a door to reconciliation. It didn't. Mom sent a curt thank you, but Dad never acknowledged it. Lily texted, demanding another $20,000 for family expenses. I said no, and she replied, "You're so selfish now." Selfish? I'd given them everything, only to be spat on. I doubled down on my new life, hosting dinners for my Malibu crew, where we'd grill fish and swap stories under string lights. My foundation grew, supporting 50 women with grants up to $10,000 each. I spoke at a TEDx event about success beyond credentials, and the video hit 1 million views. For the first time, I felt enough without my family's validation, but they weren't done with me. I thought cutting them off financially would end the drama, that they'd move on as I had. I was wrong. A year after moving, I got a certified letter from a Boise lawyer. My parents and Lily were suing me, claiming I owed them a share of Fit Feet's $30 million sale for supporting my early years. They demanded $5 million. My jaw dropped. They'd taken my money, called me a failure, and now wanted to bleed me dry in court. The audacity lit a fire in me. This wasn't just betrayal, it was war. I wasn't the scared girl they dismissed anymore, and I was ready to fight back in a way they'd never see coming. The certified letter from that Boise lawyer hit like a freight train. After pouring over $1 million into my family, $200,000 for their mortgage, $50,000 for Mom's heart surgery, $80,000 for Ethan's tuition, $30,000 for Lily's wedding. They were suing me for $5 million, claiming they deserved a cut of Fit Feet's $30 million sale for raising me. I sat on my Malibu balcony, staring at the Pacific, the paper trembling in my hands. They'd called me a failure, taken my money, and now wanted to gut my life's work in court. I'd moved 1,000 miles to escape their toxicity, built a new life with my hillside home and foundation for women entrepreneurs, but they were dragging me back. My therapist's words echoed, "You've set boundaries. Now defend them." This wasn't just a lawsuit, it was their final betrayal. I called my lawyer, Claire, a shark in a pantsuit who'd handled Fit Feet's acquisition. "They've got no case," she said. "No contract, no proof, just greed." But she warned me, they'd hired a slick attorney, banking on my emotional ties to settle. Settle? After they'd mocked my $30 million empire as luck? I was done playing the dutiful daughter. Claire dug into their finances and uncovered a bombshell. Dad had lied about the foreclosure scare. The $50,000 tax debt I'd paid? It funded a vacation home in Montana, registered in Lily's name. They'd played me, using my guilt to siphon more cash. Fury replaced hurt. I told Claire, no settlement. We fight. 8 months after moving to Malibu, they showed up at my door, Dad, Mom, and Lily, unannounced. I was prepping for a foundation event, my dining table covered with grant applications for 50 women entrepreneurs. Mom hugged me, tears in her eyes, saying, "We miss you, sweetheart. Let's put this lawsuit behind us." Dad nodded, "We're family. Just share what's fair." Lily added, "You don't need all that money, right?" Their act was Oscar-worthy, but I saw through it. Claire had sent me their lawyers' emails, demanding I compensate them or face public smear campaigns. They weren't here to reconcile, they wanted a payout. I invited them in, keeping my cool. We sat in my living room, waves crashing outside. "Why the lawsuit?" I asked. Dad leaned forward. "We raised you, Sophia. That company wouldn't exist without us." Lily chimed in, "You owe us for all the years we supported you." Supported me? They'd belittled me, taken $1 million and lied about debts. I took a deep breath. "I paid your mortgage, Mom's bills, Ethan's school, Lily's wedding. I gave you $50,000 for a fake tax debt you spent on a vacation home. And you sue me?" Mom gasped, "How dare you?" Dad's face hardened. "You're ungrateful. We'll see you in court." I stood, voice steady. "You won't get a dime. I've got proof of every dollar I gave you, every lie you told. Sue me, and I'll countersue for fraud." Lily scoffed, "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone, showing Claire's email with bank records tracing the $50,000 tax payment to their Montana property. Their faces paled. Dad stammered, "You're twisting things." I cut him off. "No, you twisted my love into a paycheck. Get out of my house." Mom sobbed, "We're your family." I shook my head. Family doesn't sue family for millions while calling them failures. "Leave." They shuffled out, Dad muttering threats, Lily glaring, Mom crying. I shut the door, heart racing but lighter than ever. That night, I walked Malibu's beach, stars above, waves below. I'd given them everything, money, loyalty, hope, and they'd weaponized it. But in that moment, I felt free. Claire later told me they dropped the lawsuit, unable to face the evidence. I'd won, not just in court, but in reclaiming my worth. What I didn't expect was how this victory would spark a new chapter, one where I'd build a chosen family who'd show me what love really means. Slamming the door on my parents and Lily after their lawsuit stunt was like shedding a 1,000-pound weight. They demanded $5 million from my $30 million Fit Feet sale, lied about a $50,000 tax debt to fund a Montana vacation home, and called me a failure despite my bankrolling their lives, $200,000 for their mortgage, $50,000 for mom's heart surgery, $80,000 for Ethan's tuition, $30,000 for Lily's wedding. Their betrayal, exposed by my lawyer's bank records, forced them to drop the case, but it left me raw. I'd moved to Malibu to escape their toxicity, and now, standing in my hillside home overlooking the Pacific, I vowed to build a life where love didn't come with a price tag. That meant creating a chosen family, one that saw me for who I was, not what I could pay for. Malibu became my sanctuary. My 3-bedroom house, with its wraparound deck and ocean views, wasn't just a home, it was a canvas for a new me. I dove into the community, craving connections untainted by my past. At a surf club, I met Sarah, a painter whose infectious laugh made my wipeouts feel like victories. She invited me to her art studio, where we'd sip coffee and sketch seascapes, her encouragement soothing years of my parents' dismissal. Then there was Michael, a tech founder I met at a local startup mixer. We bonded over our shared hustle, swapping stories of late-night coding and investor rejections. He joined my foundation's board, helping me award $100,000 in grants to 50 women entrepreneurs without degrees. These weren't just friends, they were family, built on respect, not obligation. My foundation became my heart's work. I'd started it with a $100,000 seed, inspired by my own fight to prove worth beyond a diploma. We funded women like Maria, who launched a bakery with a $10,000 grant, now selling cupcakes to local cafes, and Aisha, whose tech startup secured a $50,000 contract after our mentorship. Each success felt like rewriting my story, proving my parents wrong without needing their applause. We hosted monthly meetups at my house, grilling burgers on the deck, sharing dreams under Malibu's starry skies. Sarah would strum her guitar, Michael would crack dad jokes, and I'd look around, feeling a warmth I'd never known in Boise. I also found community in small moments. My neighbor, Linda, a retired nurse, taught me to grow herbs, her stories of resilience reminding me family isn't just blood. I volunteered at a local shelter, donating 10,000 pairs of shoes through Fit Feet's recycling program, meeting folks who valued kindness over cash. These connections grounded me, replacing the void my family left. Ethan called once, apologizing for staying silent during the lawsuit. "I was wrong," he said. "You deserved better." I forgave him, but kept my distance. He was still tied to Boise's drama. Lily and my parents? Radio silence. Claire, my lawyer, confirmed they'd sold the Montana property, likely to cover legal fees. I felt no guilt, only relief. A year into Malibu life, I hosted a beach bonfire for my foundation's first anniversary. 50 grantees, Sarah, Michael, Linda, and others gathered, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. Maria thanked me, tears in her eyes, for believing in her bakery. Michael raised a toast to Sophia, who built more than a company, she built a family. My chest swelled. I'd spent 7 years chasing my parents' approval, funding their lives while they called me a failure. Now, surrounded by people who celebrated my heart, not my wallet, I realized family isn't owed, it's earned. This wasn't the end of my journey, though. A final test loomed, one that would force me to face my past head-on and solidify the lessons I'd learned about love, worth, and the courage to choose myself over blood ties that only bled me dry. The beach bonfire celebrating my foundation's first anniversary, surrounded by my chosen family, Sarah, Michael, Linda, and 50 women entrepreneurs I'd helped, felt like a milestone not just for them, but for me. I'd walked away from a family that took over $1 million, $200,000 for their mortgage, $50,000 for mom's heart surgery, $80,000 for Ethan's tuition, $30,000 for Lily's wedding, only to sue me for $5 million from FitFeet's $30 million sale, calling me a failure all the while. Their betrayal, unmasked by bank records showing they'd lied about a $50,000 tax debt to buy a Montana vacation home, pushed me to Malibu, where I built a life rooted in respect, not exploitation. That night, as waves crashed and marshmallows roasted, I realized my journey wasn't just about escaping pain. It was about learning truths I could share to help others break free. My biggest lesson? Your worth isn't tied to anyone's approval, not even family. For 7 years, I chased my parents' validation, thinking if I paid their bills or built a $30 million empire, they'd see me. They didn't. Instead, they weaponized my love, demanding more while dismissing my work as luck. Walking away taught me that love doesn't mean sacrificing your soul. If someone parent, sibling, friend, devalues you, you don't owe them loyalty. Set boundaries, even if it hurts. Try this today. Write down one relationship that dims your light. Ask yourself, does this person respect my worth? If not, limit their access to your heart. It's not selfish, it's survival. Another truth, family isn't blood, it's choice. In Malibu, I found Sarah, who taught me to paint my pain into art, Michael, who cheered my hustle, and Linda, who shared gardening wisdom like a mom should. My foundation's 50 grantees, women like Maria with her bakery and Aisha with her tech startup, became sisters in spirit, their victories mine too. These bonds, built on mutual respect, showed me family is who lifts you, not who leeches you. Look around. Who in your life celebrates you without strings? Nurture those ties. If they're not there, go find them, join a club, volunteer, or start a passion project. Your tribe is waiting. Finally, success is living true to yourself, not others' rules. FitFeet's $20 million revenue and TEDx talk with 1 million views were sweet, but real victory was waking up in my Malibu home, free from my parents' shadow. Success isn't a degree or a dollar amount, it's peace. Ask yourself, what makes me feel alive? For me, it's funding $10,000 in grants for women like me who were told they'd fail without a diploma. Whatever your spark is, chase it, even if it scares you. My parents' lawsuit, their lies, their scorn, they didn't break me. They forged me. A year after the bonfire, Ethan reached out, saying Dad had a heart scare. I sent flowers, no cash. He thanked me, hinting at reconciliation, but I held firm, respect or nothing. My parents and Lily stayed silent, their lawsuit a faded scar. I hosted another foundation event, awarding $100,000 to new grantees. Sarah painted a mural for it, Michael emceed, and Linda brought her famous rosemary bread. As we danced under Malibu stars, I felt whole. My journey taught me to choose myself, to build a life where I'm enough. Here's your challenge. This week, take one step toward your truth. Maybe it's saying no to a toxic demand, reaching out to a potential friend, or starting that dream project. You don't need permission to shine. My parents called me a failure, took my millions and sued me for more, but I cut them off and found freedom. You can too. Who's held you back, and how will you reclaim your worth? The hardest steps lead to the greatest peace, and I'm rooting for you to find yours, just as I found mine on this sunlit shore.